everyone. Okay, hey everyone. How are you? It's good to see everyone. I have a couple of people in the clouds, and that's fine. So I wanted to go live tonight. One of the reasons I want to go live is because there are a lot of people who I've been having discussions with about multi-generationally mixed identity, as well as the mixed and biracial identity. Hey AMR, how you doing tonight? Hey Naughty Coffee, nice to see you. Naughty Coffee. Okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about this topic. One of the things I want to say is that people who are multi-generationally mixed, if we grow up in one community, we're more likely to choose that community to identify as. And if we grow up in a white community, for example, or maybe an Asian or Middle Eastern community, and we're mixed with those ethnicities, we may choose to claim a mixed ethnicity because that's closest to the ethnicity of the people around us. Okay, if we grow up in the Black community, we're more likely to choose a Black identity and be enculturated into Blackness. The reason I want to talk about this is because I've been hearing a lot of controversial discussions from people in this space. And one of the things I noticed is that people are really, really divided on these topics, even though they pretend that they aren't. So they like to try to wash over people's identities with terms like mulatto. But in reality, they don't really view you as mixed race to the same extent. They view you somehow as a lower race or a lesser race, and they view themselves as a higher race, okay? And, sadly, this is what it's evolved into in this space. There are a lot of people who used to be a part of this space that have simply exited this space. They got tired of the constant battling and fighting. This was supposed to be a community where we came together to talk about our experiences, but instead it devolved into a space where there was constant fighting. I feel like a lot of people had called for the division of multi-generationally mixed people from biracial people, but I really don't see those people here today in the chat. So I don't necessarily want to approach that topic without a sufficient number of people present to bear witness to this discussion and to provide input, okay? Because I'm just one person. This is just my one opinion. But I've noticed there's a total invalidation of multi-generationally mixed people's identity in this space. Light-skinned Black people are often left out of conversations or treated as lesser in this space. People use this space as a Tinder dating app You know, they can't wait for you to cam up because they want to know, should I follow her? Let's see what she looks like. They don't care about what you're talking about. They're not here for these subjects. They just hear mixed race and they want to see who's here. They want to go by your looks. So, I mean, these are some of the struggles of content creators in this space. But in terms of how people are identifying after they leave this space, I would say a lot of people are going to be like, you know what, I'll just say that I am Black and keep it moving, because they may feel that somehow claiming mixed race is just too controversial. It's just a problem. There's too much racism dynamics associated with claiming mixed race. You know, mixed race people themselves, they're struggling with their identity. A lot of people in here are going to claim that they're not struggling with it, but I'm going to argue that they are. I really don't care how they feel about that, because to me it's very clear that they are valuing their white heritage over their Black heritage. They don't care about being mixed race at all, okay? And then they have the nerve to wonder why it is controversial. So I didn't take a lot of time promoting this video. I didn't share it with anyone. I've cut a lot of people off. A lot of people have cut me off. We've all been cutting each other off. And I don't, you know, it's like, it might be for the best, because I think people need some time to reflect on their behavior. They really do. People need time to reflect on how what they're saying and doing in this space affects broader conversations, because other people can see these discussions. And if you don't feel like it's important enough for you to represent yourself a certain way, then why should the world care? Why should anyone advocate for you? Why should there be any activism on your behalf, right? So I'm going to check out a couple of comments. And one of them is, you know, certain people, I guess, think the world revolves around them. Yeah, there have been some very egotistical creators, and it's not always bad. Like, sometimes content creators want to be number one, and you love their magnetic, charismatic personality. You know, I guess you can think of a person in this space. There are maybe a couple who have very magnetic personalities, but there's a downside to being popular or being magnetic in that sense, right? Because there's some people that they see, and I'm just going to say women, you know, kind of doing their thing and being brazen, and all they can think about doing is taking them down. So I was going to talk about a different topic tonight. And if this conversation goes left, hey, Stacey Nelson, it's nice to see you. So good to see you. If this conversation goes left, I will be changing the title, but I want to focus a lot of my content on the multi-generationally mixed community. There are a lot of channels that focus on people who are biracial. I think that market is oversaturated. Some content creators are excellent at discussing biracial issues. And honestly, there are people who dislike certain biracial content creators, but I do think that whether you like them or not, you cannot argue with the fact that they have excellent biracial content. So there have been some issues, and I think I'll talk about it too at the end of my stream, because I just feel like these different issues between the creators are really preventing a lot of people from moving forward in the space. And I just wish there was a way that we could change that. But I'm going to read a couple of comments. Someone said, I found that with certain people, they take it so personal when they can't emotionally manipulate you into their warped point of view. I would agree with that. And I would also say that some people are very emotional. You know, some people are very sensitive. No, nobody is perfect. So nobody is perfect. And in this space, I've noticed that people expect some of the different content creators to be perfect. and they're not, you know. They may have a bad background, but I don't know that they'll be a bad person forever. You know, they can change. We can all change. So I don't think people should constantly be bashing these creators. And I think we all know who I'm talking about. Me personally, I've been threatened by people in this space over these different creators, and I'm really getting sick of it. But I'm going to try to stay on topic. It's just that it's been crazy. But I see a comment. It says mind control and manipulation plays a part in it as well. So yeah, there are people who they try to control all of the discussions, you know, or they try to get people to think a certain way. They create a lot of fake receipts, fake evidence. They constantly spread rumors. Like one of the people that has been spreading rumors, they've spread numerous rumors about me, but one of them that's interesting is that I reported their Instagram. And I had to laugh to myself because I don't even use Instagram. But see, they don't mind lying every day. And I feel like that's not strength. If you have to lie on other people every single day, then that's not strength. That's weakness. You know, that's weakness. So when people say you're not prepared for leadership, if you're not prepared to lead with honesty and accountability, then you're not a leader. Okay. Certain leaders in this space, they are charismatic, they're outgoing, they're fun-loving and free-spirited. So you've got a lot of people following them. They do stuff wrong, they make mistakes, but people love them anyway. And then you have other creators who they just spend all their time talking about these people. I like I said, I've been threatened, I've been harassed over connections to other people. And I feel like I'm not even as close to people as other people may think, but it's just a perception that, oh my God, I hate this person and she shared their video or she liked some of their comments or invited them on her panel. It's gotten to that point. So I just feel like I know those particular creators are listening because they actually videotape all of my content and post it on their channel. And they've been getting copyright strike for it too. But yeah, like it's gotten to the point where it's almost embarrassing. Okay. So I just want to say, Al Show says, in regards to the question, it would depend on what individuals or groups find it controversial to claim being mixed race. So, well, obviously, many of the people, like in the beginning, I said something that's really key because I feel like there's been a lot of trashing of people in this space based on how they choose to identify. But depending on the community you grow up in, that's going to influence how you identify. If you grow up in the Black community and you're mixed race, you're most likely to identify as a Black person. Why would you identify as another race within the Black community? You don't want to be seen as an outsider. You want to be a part of the community. So you're going to identify as Black. If you are mixed race, you're half Black, you're half white, and you grew up in the white community, I would say you would be more likely to identify as mixed. Let's say you were only partially white and you grew up in the white community. You know, you're 40% white and 60% Black. You're probably more likely to identify as mixed because people are going to be seeking community with you, even though you may be of another race. This is not, 1925, or 1900. This is, 2023. So people are not going to be, necessarily outcasting you that hard as a mixed race person. But I did want to talk about this issue because I had a really good conversation with someone last night, and they were talking about how they just didn't feel comfortable really identifying as mixed race. I've heard more than one time clearly mixed race content creators saying, I just identify as Black. Being mixed race, that's about division. That's about dividing Black people. And they have a notion of Black unity. However, you do have a substantial portion of mixed people who are saying, I don't necessarily want to be a part of Black unity because I feel like I'm being mistreated or misused in the Black community. So I would argue that those are potent arguments as well. And a lot of the reason why I would argue there should be delineation is because, we can't necessarily have 100% community with the Black community anymore. Mixed race people were often ostracized in one way or another within the Black community. So even though we may 100% embrace them, they may not 100% embrace us. And sometimes we're expected to go above and beyond just to prove ourselves in the Black community. And that can get hard. I agree. It says you can identify with a certain community, but still feel out of place. Yeah. Yeah, and I also think too that sometimes, depending on how people look, that also has a huge, that has a huge, that has a huge impact on how people identify. And I'm sorry for making this so late. I know it's very late that I made this, but I wanted to give people ample time, to see the alert. And I didn't necessarily want to alert everybody. Usually I try to tell a lot of people, but I'd rather people just find it on their own. I've also considered making everything private just because as these YouTube issues occur, it just takes away from the space, and I want people to feel comfortable. People coming to my channel to talk about issues, I want them to feel comfortable. I don't want them to feel like they're being attacked, okay, or that there's going to be a whole lot of memes and harassment made about them because they are following me. I think that's very unfair. I'm very concerned at the group that's doing that. I just think it's the most atrocious, disgusting behavior to attack people's followers. And it just shows the level that people operate on in this space. They're so desperate. And they don't have to be. These are just, again, these are just conversations. Like, I don't see what the difficulty is with people just feeling comfortable conversing with other people about topics. Why does this have to be a competition? Why does this have to be a fight between different people? Ultimately, I really enjoyed this space when everybody was supporting each other and, joining panels with each other, and there wasn't as much conflict, but I think it will take some time to get back to that. I'm hopeful that we can get back to that. I hope a lot of people in this space learn to forgive each other. And I also hope that they are honest with themselves. There's a lot of dishonesty surrounding some of the content creators. We all know that a lot of these rumors circulating about different creators are untrue, but for some reason, people just participate in it. They go along with it, and it just creates excessive conflict. So I'm hoping that people can, stand tall and be honest with themselves, honest with each other, okay, and not participate in this type of conflicted type of subscribers where they're afraid to subscribe, they're afraid to show up, they're fighting, people are attacking each other. Like, it's just unnecessary, and it looks so bad from an outside point of view. I can imagine both the Black and white community just laughing their tails off at the foolishness of this space. But I want to say hello to some new people that came in. So hello, J. Marco, Fair-Minded, how are you? Nice to see you again. And I want to think about the topic, like, why is it controversial to claim mixed? Let's think about some of our experiences. So for me personally, when I claimed mixed early on as a child, really, I really didn't. I really already knew I was mixed. I was kind of like something suspicious about what I'm being told here, but I already knew. And even though I was sent to different types of schools and received a really good education, and um, met a lot of different types of people and very comfortable with different cultures, I still felt like, there is a difference. There's a difference. It's not negative or positive. It's just a difference. And I felt like it's important for people to feel comfortable with that. So, hey, Diana, how you doing? Yeah, you're 60-40. Yes, I'm a 60-40 or two, sort of like 57, 58. Right. That's a whole different ballgame. You know what's weird about the 60-40 category? I feel like we have a little bit more of the black, but we have a substantial amount of white, and it really shows through. And a lot of the time, people just assume we're mixed. But I do feel like, I wonder if we could be more connected to blackness. I wonder about that. Just getting to that 50%, you get that 50%, that 51%, you're over the hump, okay? You're more connected to, it could be possible, from a genetic viewpoint. You have blue and you have yellow, right? You put blue and yellow together. Of course, in the middle comes green, but not enough yellow, you're going to have like a turquoise or something like that, right? A lot of yellow, it's going to be very, very green. So it's like just a little bit extra, right? And you're leaning to one side or the other. That can have a lot to do with how you're identifying. So let me read Diane's comments. I know you're coming in here with some smoke. I love it. Stop mixed and black policing MGMs. How we identify is none of your business. I am both black and mixed since I am 60-40. And I want to talk about that, right? Stop mixed and black policing MGMs. So I've heard people in this space, and I know they're going to hear this. I had a biracial person tell me to stay in my MGM lane. I thought that was interesting. I'm like, what lane would that be, miss? Okay, but because upon saying that, I just felt like you're setting a distinction between the two. When I feel like with a lot of MGMs, we don't see the distinction. Okay, we don't see a difference. To me, I don't see a difference sometimes between biracials and me, but biracial people sometimes see a difference between MGMs and biracials. And I think it often, it may not be us. We may look at them and say, oh, they look just like us. We're just like them. They may be thinking, oh no, they're not like us. They don't have a white parent. They don't have an Asian parent. Okay. So there is a distinction. And although I really appreciated, I'm just going to say this, I really appreciated Multi and Gigi sort of going to bat for the MGMs initially and saying that they are mixed, because there was that back and forth fight. Okay. And I didn't realize how extreme it was in this space. But it was actually pretty extreme. But I think it's something that, people who are in the fields of mixed race studies, is something to note. MGM people see themselves as the same, but biracial people do not see us as the same. Now, I want to quote Ona on this one, because Ona said they see you the same when it comes to subs, okay? So when it's time to get them subs, then all of a sudden, yeah, y'all are just like us, okay? But other than that, we are viewed as not the same as biracial people. And I think the parenting issue is a very, very important issue. So I have always distinguished myself as separate, okay, from biracial people, because I think those discussions are best led by biracial people. I would never want to wash over that and say, oh, well, I look just like you guys, so I can get in on the discussion too. No, I would never like overstep in that sense. But I also think that with people who are biracial, they may not be understanding some of the MGM identity discussions too, because we may not view ourselves as closely with the white community. And we also may not view ourselves as closely with the Black community, even if we identify as Black. So you can be an MGM and you can be very, very light. You can be almost white passing, and you can say, "Yeah, I'm Black. I don't have any problem with calling myself Black." But you may not feel necessarily the same type of community that other Black people feel when they walk into a room filled with unambiguous Black people. You may feel like, "Man, I'm different. I'm not the same as them." But you're appreciative that they welcome you into their community, but you feel like you're not a part of them. Okay. But I think there's a difference. You see your parents at home, you know that either they're both mixed, or maybe just genetically you happen to be that, one, that surprise baby that came out looking very different than the rest of your family. And, you may have this idea that, okay, obviously I'm different, but this is all I have. Okay. So this is another thing. Like, to me, I felt like it was important for people who are MGM, whether you identify as mixed or Black, or maybe you're white passing and you feel like at times you've just said that you were white. I feel like it was important for us to have a sense of community as well. And I don't think I ever wanted to overstep, like I said, the biracial lane, but I also wanted to create that alliance with the biracial community. So I'm going to read some comments, and then I'm actually going to put out the StreamYard link in case anybody wants to come up and talk about their experiences. But I want to say hello to some people too. Okay. Fair-minded, Diana. Yes, Diana. It says, biracials do not own a monopoly on who is or isn't mixed. Worry about yourselves. Diana's coming with the smoke. Okay. DNA does not distribute in equal halves. I like that statement as well, because this part of the problem too, you could probably be 75% Black and you may come out looking nearly white passing. There's no hard and fast rules. So there are at times outliers. You might be 75%, you're Malaysian. You may come out looking like a whole nother different race that is not even connected to either of those races. That can also happen. So I definitely agree. DNA doesn't necessarily distribute the way that we think. Sometimes people also look different in the first generation biracial versus the second generation. Sometimes the first generation can be pale with dark hair, dark eyes. That's what I've seen a lot. Pale skin, dark hair, dark eyes. The second generation is melanated with light hair and light eyes. I don't know why that happens, but I've seen that play out a lot in a lot of people that I know that were mixed. And even generation after generation, light hair, light eyes. Of course, many people will identify as Black. They will identify as Creole. Sometimes they'll say they're Atlantic Creole or Chesapeake Creoles. But again, they will have that distinctive appearance where you'll say, oh, this person, I didn't think they were Black, So this is another comment from Diana. Yes, most of us 60-40 are biracial passing, but I tend to feel more connected to my Black side than my mixed side, especially with my Native roots. And I want to say that there are a lot of people like that. And you can be 75% white and 25% Black, and you can feel more connected to Blackness. I don't think there's any rule. Sometimes I laugh to myself too, because sometimes you'll see very white passing people who identify very heavily with Blackness and Black culture, right? And then you'll see people who are like 75% Black, and they'll be like very, very much identifying with like European cultures, British culture, Scottish culture, Polish culture, German culture. And you'll be thinking to yourself, this person, I just thought they were Black. But for some reason, they will be very connected to those cultures. So I would say there definitely is not a hard and fast rule about how you will feel connected to which race. Um, Someone said red and blue makes purple. Yeah, like when you put the different ethnic groups together, there's no hard and fast rules about what will be created. And the whole concept of 50-50 is really more of a concept than it is a strict identity, right? Because a lot of people aren't even 50-50 anyway. You know, they're 30% Black or 40% Black. They're not even 50% Black. So the whole concept of this 50-50 white Black person, that's kind of like just a concept, you know. And this was a long-standing dispute in this space. Most of us MGMs and biracials are culturally different. It's a difference, by the way, indirectly by generational standards, indirectly mixed. So yeah, like of course, if you like, let's say you are growing up in a home and you have a white mother and a Black father, which is the most common mix. Obviously, that's going to be very different than growing up with mixed parents, especially people who have been mixed generation after generation after generation, and have identified as Black. That's obviously going to be two different cultures. This is another one. I see some biracial people using MGM images, like monoracial people using biracial MGM images when it suits them. So the Lane comment is interesting. The shade. So let me talk about that too, because we've had this discussion in this space behind the scenes a lot. A lot of people who are presented in the media that are mixed race are actually MGM and not necessarily biracial. So a lot of the time when people talk about like a biracial history month, they would be presenting a lot of MGM people. And that poses an issue when you don't consider MGMs to be the same group as you, okay? Or if you consider them to be a lesser group than you. You know, that's not how it works. And I do think considering them to be a lesser group, that dynamic is definitely in this space. And it has led to a considerable amount of hurt feelings and conflict. But someone said Ona told the truth. She did. And Ona is very controversial. But sometimes she comes up with some very good points. Like anybody, you know, they come up with good points. You cannot dispute the relevance of what they're saying. So I think some of the commentary is interesting. I do from time to time watch her channel and listen to her discussions. You know, sometimes she's just very incendiary. You know, she likes to be very incendiary, but she does come up with good points. And I think people need to notice that not to just chalk people off because they're incendiary, but also listen to the commentary, because I have listened to a lot of content creators, and usually when they get into like kind of like a hate mode and it's just hating on other content creators, I just tend to tune out, because I feel like I have my own opinion about a person. I don't need anybody to tell me about another person or say, you know, I saw them do X, Y, and Z. Like, how do I know that what you're saying is the truth? If the person lied one time, they can lie again. So then also I'm not believing people just 100% based on what they say. But I do like to listen to some of the different content creators and what they're talking about. And some of the content creators are very much on point. I appreciate the fact too that some content creators, despite a lot of obstacles in this space, have continued to go strong and continue to have their discussions. It's actually led me to continue on, because I have people attacking me. I'm like, why are people attacking me? I didn't do anything. But, you know, I'm not going to play innocent. Sometimes I can be a little snarky. You know, I like to be funny sometimes. But I kind of cooled it out, because people can get very offended by something you might just be joking. And, you know, these are sensitive topics. So I think it's important that we are sensitive. So Diana says her mama had the Malcolm X mentality. She was half Black, but identified as Black, and her dad was Black. Yeah. Hi, MLS. People should date each other. Good to see you. And it says, I don't understand how we are seen as not the same when the prime example of MGM is a person with two biracial parents. That's a good question because I noticed that I asked somebody a question and they're probably listening right now. They're probably laughing. I hope you're laughing. I hope you think this is funny. But when I asked this person a question, I asked them, Zoe Kravitz um, has a biracial mother and a biracial father. What race is she? And they said black. To me, that's the ultimate one drop rule ideology. Some people are calling her a mulatto. I don't know if I would call her that. If she would say she's biracial, that's one thing, but a lot of people will not argue for that word. Some people argue for it, others don't like it. I like it, but I feel like it is controversial. But yeah, someone said, oh, she's just black. And when they said just, just is a pejorative term. So saying that an MGM person is just black, that's actually pejorative. And I've noticed that it had gotten thrown around in this space a little bit. But yeah, when you see two mixed race people, a biracial parent and another biracial parent, and they have a child, that is a good question. What do you call them? Based on what I've read, multi-generationally mixed, but you have people arguing about terms in this space all the time. And honestly, I feel like until the government gets a proper term, and certain communities come together and vote on a proper term, we will just continue to have the same argument over and over. But I'm about 10 minutes behind in the conversation. So it says MLS and MGM are the ones who are bullied. Yeah, we are. We are exoticals, the exoticals, MGMs. I think it's unfortunate. I think this was supposed to be a place for mixed and light-skinned people to come together. And I still believe in that mission for those groups to come together, even though we have our separate differences and our separate experiences growing up. We should still be able to create a supportive space. I don't like the idea of anybody trying to create an hierarchy between the different groups. This group is better than this group, or I think there should be some separations, but I think we should all be able to come together and advocate together. But someone said, we're not the same depending on your lineage. Biracials don't have a lineage most of the time, but you don't have biracials who have MGM lineage. That could be true, but you could also have biracial people who have an MGM parent and a white parent. Okay, and a lot of the time when biracials have an MGM parent and a white parent, sometimes they'll be like white passing and they'll be like, my mother is black, like my mother or my father is black. And then you'll look at the parent and you're like, that person is not black. So you do have people who, you do have some biracials with those MGM parent. But yeah, we don't share the same lineage. I think when people are mixed, and they're saying, okay, what kind of culture am I going to give to my child? Black culture is a very rich culture. So often people will share Black culture with their child. I'm going to be honest. A lot of American culture does revolve around Black culture in terms of, like food and identity and music. However, when it comes to other aspects, Black people and Blackness is shunned. So I feel like culturally people tend to raise their child as Black, but they want them to kind of adopt a more Euro ethnicity in order to be successful, because a lot of the time the stereotypes of Blackness and Black culture can sometimes be, a group that's not thriving or succeeding. And I mean, although it may not be true, it depends on where you are. A lot of time it isn't true, but you still have that as a broadly held stereotype that's pervasive even in other countries, that, this is what Black people are living like over in the United States. And they get here, they see doctors, they see lawyers, they see people driving Mercedes, and they're like, oh, these people are living good. So Yeah, there are a lot of stereotypes. But someone said MGM has been around for centuries, even though people don't say they are to other people. My thing is let's not be dismissive. I agree with that. You know, people being dismissive of the MGM group. And I want to say too that people have a problem with a delineation between biracial and MGM, but I don't know, like I said, that delineation started with the MGM group. I think the delineation may have started with the biracial group who wanted this space to be strictly biracial, or they wanted a strictly biracial space to the point that they even created a biracial sphere, you know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that um, to dismiss other people's identity, that is an issue. Someone says they were obsessed with Native American culture, like Elizabeth Warren. And yeah, I mean, and I don't want to make assumptions too. Somebody said people are making assumptions on the whole because of people in this group. Yeah, you can't really make assumptions. That's true. I cannot make assumptions on biracial people as an MGM person, and biracial people cannot make assumptions based on the MGMs or light skins that they see entering the golden sphere. That's not how it works. You have to know people in real life. But what I would say is that in real life, I definitely have had some biracial people more so not knowing how they would categorize me racially. Okay, since their concept of race is that they are quote unquote biracial, they don't know how to categorize other mixed people. Okay, so that may be an issue in and of itself. But I do think that mixed people need to work together to create a unique identity for their children and communities. Yeah, and that's true also. They have a more loving connection to their white side because of family. Right. So of course if you grow up with a white mother and you have like her family, you know, you're going to feel much more connected to white people or whiteness because of that connection to your family. But obviously if you're MGM, that may be a more distant connection because it's only your grandparents. And I also want to point out that, you know, obviously some MGMs have grandparents of different races, but you do have people who are categorized as MGM just based on the fact that they were historically mixed. And when I say historically mixed, I generally mean like Creole or other groups that, you know, held a mixed race identity. Some people like to talk about admixture from slavery. I really haven't gotten into those topics just because that's really where all the incendiary talk comes from. You know, this is all about slavery and everybody is light-skinned because of slavery. And I really hate that talking point because I think that there were people engaged in actual relationships and it wasn't all about slavery. But again, that's controversy. Someone says they hate white supremacy, but not white people. Yeah, of course. But I think, you know, like the white supremacy term too, sometimes I feel like it's overused. Everybody likes to call everything white supremacy. And I want to be careful of that too, because if somebody has a white mother or a white father, and you're constantly talking about white supremacy, you may be inadvertently triggering them. And I think a lot of the time in this space, we don't realize that we're triggering each other, right? We're saying things, not realizing that it's triggering to other people. And since people are reluctant to speak up on it, maybe they're your friend, you know, you'll just see it in their behavior that they're not 100% happy with you. But someone said my grandmother is 35% African, my mom 42 to 45%. I'm between 57 and 63%. So yes, I am MGM. Someone said Ona does have good points. She does. She does. And I really hope that she finds the right outlet in the right space. But she does say incendiary things. I've heard her say some wild stuff. I'm like, I won't even repeat it on this channel. It's just, she's been off the chain. But you know, a lot of you know, in order to be a content creator, you got to be strong. You have to be so strong. You cannot give up. Sometimes it's like you just want to give up because people are just relentless in trying to stop you and prevent you from moving forward. But hats off to the strong women in this space who continue to persevere despite people constantly attacking them. Hats off to them. And he says you don't have to agree with everything someone says. That's true. 100%. Yeah, some biracials will claim the MGM community of the past that were called mulattoes, but then feel different than ancestors of those mulattoes. So, how you doing, Duke? It's good to see you. But yeah, they'll claim the MGMs of the past, and they'll want to call themselves mulattoes. But then in this space, somehow being an MGM is like a lesser label or a lesser group. The biracials are the real group. The MGM is a lesser group. And that's kind of unfortunate, because in order for you to have a successful mixed community, you can't tie, any kind of ranking or hierarchy into biracial versus, people that are just mixed. Okay. Like you can't make that the hierarchy. I feel like the hierarchy should be education, money, being a role model, good behavior. But I don't think the hierarchy should be, okay, I have a white mother. That shouldn't be the hierarchy, And Jay Mako said, we can identify as we want. No one defines you but you. Yeah, 100. So I'm going to put the link. If anyone wants to come up, you're welcome to come up on the stream. Let's see if this works. And I'll just read a few more comments. Yeah, anti-Black talking points, mixed policing MGMs. For real, I can't with it. The mixed policing, name calling, rabble rousing, troll videos. Yes. I get it's sad. I said that in my other video, and these people got so angry. It's sad. This is a space for mixed people to uplift each other. If nothing else, even if we just want to talk about hairstyles, this is a space for us to uplift each other. But I'm going to let up Jose. Hey, Jose, how you doing? Can you hear me? You know what? I cannot hear you. Let me see if I can fix your mic. If not, I might have to. Let me see if I can hear AMR, because this is. Hey, AMR, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm
What's
good.
going on, Jose?
Yeah, it's Jose's mic is out. Jose, I'm gonna drop you down. Try to come back up. Yeah, he dropped down himself. I didn't do it, you guys. I didn't do it. But yeah. What's going on, AMR? How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing good.
So what do you think of this topic?
Well, wow, you know what? Definitely gonna be some turning heads. But nah though, but hey, but nah though, but what you saying though, like, you haven't not missed a beat on anything at all.
I appreciate
I think
you saying that.
And sometimes even when, even as content creators, even though I do this sort of pretty much as a hobby, but that still doesn't mean that I won't participate or get involved whenever I see fit. When you're getting something out there, regardless of how controversial it is, I mean, it's always going to be very important that you must be clear and precise.
Right.
And also another thing too, because and also one of the points that you made earlier, and I was going to sort of piggyback off of it. when it comes to, again, like the MGMs, biracials, or regular MLS folks, or what have you, about the cultural differences. I mean, especially, again, what region you also live in as well, whether you're from the North or from the South, the East Coast, the West Coast.
Yeah, can you?
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because even when, again, now, even down South, right, which has a lot of history, sometimes good, sometimes bad.
Mm-hmm.
And you still had, groups of mixed folks, again, living under a certain roof, even before the New World, again, there was a thing called the New World that came before the United States was even known as the United States, intermingling, mixing, and all that.
That's true. Yeah, so you're saying there already were some mixed groups before, and I think too, like the term mixed. I said this, and people like argue with me about this, but the term mixed really is referencing like black, white, or black and white races mixing, right? Because any other groups mixing, Russians and Siberians, like people aren't keeping track of that like the same kind of way that they are black and white, you know, dark and light. This is what they're really keeping track of. So um, people like to try to act like that all of these groups mixtures are the same or like are considered the same historically, and I just feel like they really aren't. I'm not saying that they're not mixed, I'm just saying that the controversy surrounding them being mixed and the need for discussion and advocacy and activism on behalf of that, it's just not to the same level, because I don't feel like they're getting the same kind of treatment. If you're white and Latino, are you getting the same kind of treatment? Like, I feel like somehow it's different treatment when you're black and white in the United States or black and Korean. There's a whole different level of treatment. So I want to welcome Jose to the panel. Jose, is your mic working? Oh, I'm sorry. Your mic is not working. And I want to welcome the Al Show to the panel. Hey, Al, is your mic working? I see he's got his mic muted for a moment. But
yeah. Sorry. My mic's working. Sorry. Yeah, it's interesting what you just brought up. I noted this on biracial social media groups that I'm on. My feeling has been this. This is one of the things that I don't necessarily agree with. Often the face of biracial people in this country, or mixed race people in this country, are African American / European American people, black, white, biracial, or black,
right.
some other. And statistically, that's not really the case, because they aren't the majority of mixed race people, from what I recall of statistics.
Yeah, the majority is supposed to be white and Native American. But I wanna talk about a comment that Diana made, because Diana is really staying on point. She says, since most of us MGM's white ancestry is most likely from our word or the white men had mistresses, we don't have the same love or connection to our white heritage like many of the biracials. I mean, that's an excellent point. But remember I was saying that the R word, that's very controversial, and I feel like somehow in 2023 we need to move past the R word being the reason why we're not somehow embracing ourselves. Like, we need to move past the R word, because I just don't see how you're going to be like nearly looking like another race and you're still going to say, I want to claim just black. I only want to claim blackness. And I feel like a lot of us want to do that, but you just have too many people in the Black community that are making the delineation. So somehow we have to be in agreement with these different groups in this country as to who we're going to be. And I don't think the white community or the Black community should have the final say on it. I think people who are, highly mixed race need to start making that decision for themselves. So I want to read a couple of comments, Al, before I go on. And it says, I think some biracials want to identify only with quadroon types, even when they themselves aren't very light. The shade. I shouldn't be laughing, but I agree 100%. Like, it's
And you know
all
what, though,
about
but Future, let me also go ahead and throw this point in out as well. Like what you stated, and also even what Diana stated, that's pretty, again, even when it comes to the R word, yeah, there's definitely very, a traumatic, brutal history, which unfortunately still affects many folks till this day. And however, again, you got people from different monoracial groups trying to have the final say so on who stays and who goes. And so, and that was why I stated in the chat that, I choose to identify as whoever as I see fit. Nobody is not going to tell me what to do. They don't pay my bills or put food on my table or put clothes on my back. If they were, then, hey, I'll take in whatever they say in consideration all day. But since they don't, and yes, I know I'm only one person, but I know that quite a few people will agree. Maybe some will disagree. Now, am I wrong for saying that? No.
no, not at all.
And also even with the term, and even with Creole, right? Yes, that is definitely a triracial. When I say a triracial group, then biracial, or even sort of multiracial.
Yeah, I would say Creole is multiracial, but I would consider, me personally, I just say that they're multi-generationally mixed, okay? Because they're mixed races for probably several centuries, the Creole people, and they're probably the largest group of multi-generational mixes, but they're so large. I mean, they have their own identity. The rest of these multi-generationally mixed communities that have been going on so long, Virginia, Maryland,
Louisiana, Texas, even some
right,
parts of Alabama, Mississippi. Yeah.
right.
And
they don't have the
funny?
same.
And what's funny is that even though, even though, yes, even they too also faced times during slavery, but guess what? The culture is still kept, not just in the United States, but pretty much all over the world.
Oh, definitely. But I want to say hi to some people. I want to welcome Fair-Minded to the panel. Hello, Fair-Minded.
Hey there. Hello, everybody. Thanks for letting me come up.
Yeah, welcome to our panel. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay,
yes,
and I have I want to say hi to Irby as well. Irby came through. Also Duke. I see Jose. I don't know, Jose, something is wrong with your mic. But what would you like to add to this discussion, Fair-Minded?
Yeah, I think probably I don't know whether you've moved on to another kind of topic, but you were just mentioning about the history of our word and how it has not all to do, but a lot to do with the mixture that Black American people have. And it seems like we're sort of like the last holdouts when it comes to accepting sort of all parts of ourselves, because there are a lot of other groups of people who have, some similar histories in terms of people who are groups that colonize them or oppress them in some way, but they seem to connect with those people anyway. I think of like Latino people who have, conquistador heritage, but they seem to integrate that in a different way. But we're sort of like the last holdout. And I don't know whether that's, good or bad at this point, but we're sort of the last ones to sort of make that integration.
Right. We don't. Yeah, and it has a lot to do with constant discussion brought up about slavery. However, I also like to talk about the fact that the civil rights movement was only in the 60s and 70s. So, although that may seem like, ages ago to somebody who might be like 14 or 21 and they might be biracial, there are a lot of Americans who are, 60 and 80 who still remember a lot that went on back then. So these concepts for them, slavery is a topic that is still right there in their spirit, and it has a lot to do with their identity and how they're talking about blackness versus whiteness or blackness versus another group. So a lot of the time too in these discussions, I do want to apologize to anybody who is Black and Native American or Black and Asian or Black and Latino who feels sort of left out of these discussions a lot of the time, because a lot of the discussions tend to center around Black white mixes. However, we want to keep in mind that the Black white mixes are kind of like the defining link for a lot of these groups. So when someone sees a person who's Black Native American or Black and Latino, automatically they think you're Black and white. Okay. And sometimes even a person who is Black and Asian, sometimes they might think that person is Black and white unless they have very distinctive Asian features. But a lot of the discussion centers around the Black white community. And that's I believe, the second largest mixed race community in the United States. So the first largest is white and indigenous, white Native American groups. And the second largest is white, Black, and then we start moving into other groups. But it says I'm backstage. Let's see. I know you're backstage, but I think your mic is messed up. But thank you for adding that in, Fair Minded. And I want to read some comments. So Diana, she's bringing all the talking points tonight. She says many MGMs only claim Black because they don't want any association with white ancestry. I want people to think about that for a minute, though. Is claiming mixedness about claiming whiteness, or are you just claiming mixed? Because to me, claiming mixed just means, I'm a mixture of two different ethnic groups, and culturally, I'm going to be a combined kind of mixture of these two groups, and then over centuries, people of this mixture will develop their own culture. But is it necessarily about being white? Because a lot of people act like, oh my God, white? Oh no, I don't want to claim anything that has white in it. But I don't think that's what mixed ancestry is. I don't think it's about claiming white. I think it's just about appreciating the fact that you're multiple races,
Right. Well, it's about claiming everything. It's not about being if you're a mixed race person, but yet you try to be monoracial, you're contradicting yourself because you are a mixture of races and ethnic groups. So I'm curious in regards to MGM, like multi-generational mixed people, because I don't really know a lot about MGM, to be brutally honest. And I'm curious as to whether most MGMs, I gather, again, I don't know, that's what I'm curious about, whether they see themselves largely as African American or whether some of them see themselves as mixed people. I'm just curious.
Well, you know what? Well, I'm gonna say this, because when I first heard about the term, I believe it may have been two, and I said this before. It was like around in the early to mid 2000s. Somebody brought it to light, and he happened to be very yes, he was an MLS guy, but the thing about it was, his complexion was so pale. People would start asking him, what was it? Because versus then and now, because now, like you look at guys like him, and you look at Smokey Robinsons, and you look at who else? Give me somebody else. You know, they try to if they want to say, well, I'm a Black American or African American, there's going to be some more pushback, more than ever, more than ever, if you ask me. So
even
and
MGMs are not necessarily being allowed to see themselves as monoracial, or a number of them are not being able to see themselves as monoracial Black. Is that right? Oh, I see.
In a way.
Okay.
In a way, yes, but then again, when you look at their features, though, you can obviously tell that there's definitely different influences thrown in there.
Well, I'd say right off, the one I can think of right off the bat is Valerie Jarrett, President Obama's advisor.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Very clear she's MGM.
Yeah, so she would definitely will fit into that category.
Yeah.
I wanted to add, I think with the this sort of colorism, conversation, I think more and more people who would have just called themselves light-skinned Black are sort of having an MGM like a wake-up call, because there's this sort of retelling of history and sort of pulling out people who would have just been Black and sort of questioning them because of their phenotype. So, people like Valerie Jarrett or Vanessa Williams or these other people who, would have always identified, at least outwardly, as being Black. But because people are getting into colorism and featureism and whatever other ism is going to come next, then now there's sort of this retelling and sort of pulling those people out. And then people are going to have to decide whether they will just, stand 10 toes down for Blackness, or whether they're going to, kind of stretch out into this more like multi-generationally mixed identity.
And this is why, to me, again, spaces like this is very important for all of us, to be honest with you, whether you agree to disagree, because it has to start somewhere. Because, I mean, you see it, oh, Black is beautiful, I love my Blackness, or I love white, or I love whiteness, or whatever it is. But us as MLS people, we tend to sort of like fall into the muddy waters of you constantly being challenged, or because you don't have a certain portion of white ancestry or other types of ancestry versus somebody else, and then that creates more controversy, and then you sort of feel put in a position like, okay, well, where do you go? I mean, yeah, you can act, of course you could be an individual all day every day and just say, you know what, fuck it, I'll go where I'm appreciated and not wanted, or celebrated and not tolerated.
Right.
But there does have to be some balance, and definitely some objection in regards to what people choose to identify as. Is sort of, again, hey, maybe some folks maybe still don't understand, and that's fine. Which is why I say is, definitely important to educate you, to educate those, because otherwise, if they go out and have conversations on their own or to other people, then, and they don't know what they're talking about, that is also going to be an issue. Like when I did my stream about Mahmoud Abdul Rauf,
right,
about him, him not understanding, well, at first, why he was tweaking so much. It was that because he had Tourette's syndrome and was still able to play basketball.
Right. Well, you know what I wanted to say? What I wanted to say about like me as an MGM is I always knew that I was mixed. So like I was saying before, a lot of biracial people don't really think about any other racial terms. It's just white, black, or biracial. So when they meet somebody who may be genetically maybe similar to them, maybe they're not able to really think about, okay, well, how would I identify this person? Some people would just one drop them into blackness, whereas other people will say, well, I'm mixed, so you're mixed too. Whereas some people will understand that there's just going to be a lot of differences between the two groups. And even like sometimes you even hear people arguing about the white mom versus the black mom. Like I grew up with a white mom versus I grew up with a black mom. Now, I'm not sure of the validity of some of those discussions, right? Because I'm not a biracial person. But I do think that obviously who your mother is going to have a big effect on how you view the world, how you identify, what your identity is. And if your mother is a first generation biracial and she's very aware of what her identity is, or very aware of her heritage and the fact that her parents are two different races, and that there has been a lot going on in terms of how people want her to identify, you're going to be getting that in your home, so it's just very different. So someone brought up a good point, which is that MGM is very vague. So there were people in the space, they kind of came out of nowhere arguing about the MGM term. They wanted everybody needed to stop identifying as MGM and start identifying as something else. And I'm going to stand 10 toes down and say that I will continue to identify within this space as MGM. And I don't care how other people feel about it, because honestly, biracial people know that we do not have the same experience. Okay. And they remind us of that all the time. Okay. They remind us of that all the time. So I feel like it's just pretty interesting that out of nowhere, all of these biracial people now want all of the MGMs to sort of change their identity to help them round out their numbers or to help them get their channels off the ground. Like, we don't have the same experiences. And there's nothing wrong with a biracial person following MGM content creators and listening into their stories and their experiences and their identity issues. And there's nothing wrong with me as a MGM listening in on biracial channels, okay? Because I definitely listened in on the biracials. I supported them. I still support them. But I also feel like they need to be honest about, wanting to utilize MGMs when it's to their advantage, but then also kind of pushing us in and out of the mixed race community. And I want to point out too that, biracial people get two kinds of discrimination, right? They get discrimination from white people. They get discrimination from Black people. But I want to talk about MGMs. We get discrimination from three groups. We get it from white people, we get it from Black people, and we also get it from other biracial people, because biracial people, because they're unable to see us as the same group, there is a level of in-group discrimination that we experience, and people attacking us and creating all types of division within the group based on our identity. So yeah, it's very real. But I want to ask you, MLS people, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. What do you think we should identify as? Duke asked you a very good question. Which term do you like for our identity? He says MGM is just too vague, in my opinion. Which term do you like? Just, you can put it in the chat below. And yes, what were you going to say, Fairmonded? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just going to say real quick that yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that there needs to be the whatever we call it, there needs to be this group, because there is a pushing and pulling that happens with monoracial people and with biracial people, and I think that there's a level of I guess, like, they sort of then accuse you of being sort of a poser or like self-hating, or you're not biracial.
Right.
You're trying to pretend you're trying to be.
Or not just that, but you also have the term interloper.
Interloper,
yeah,
poser, fake mixed. Yes.
Yeah. Really? Like I'm like really?
Right,
That's what we do. That's what we're doing?
Right.
Well,
yes. That's what I was like, huh?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with those terms. Fake mixed? What does that
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
Wouldn't that refer to somebody like Rachel Dolezal? That
Exactly.
would
You
be
know what?
true.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
how are MGM people who are clearly mixed race people? Because if you look at someone like Valerie Jarrett, I can tell that is not a monoracial person. That is clearly somebody who is mixed race, though not necessarily not biracial per se, because it's down the line. It's in her back in her ancestry. So I've never heard of those terms, and I have to confess I don't know much about MGM individuals, multi generational mixed individuals. In my experience coming on mixed race groups, they've been primarily biracial, and there maybe been one or two, maybe a couple of MGM people, which has been fine. But I confess I don't really know much about the experiences of MGM people. I assume that those who are MGM meaning and black white mixture, like, to some extent, or maybe of some other mixtures, have seen themselves or have had to accommodate themselves within African American communities. That's been my assumption. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but that's been my assumption. And if it's not true, if it is true, fine. If it's not, I'm fine with that as well. But that has been my assumption. And so I really don't know much about. I've been quite open about this since I've been in mixed race spaces on YouTube. I really don't know much about multi generational mixed people. I've fortunately been able to learn a great deal about biracial people. That's been good. It's nice knowing other people like me, but I have to be honest and say I haven't really been able to talk much to multi generational mixed people and know what their experiences are like. And I didn't know that terms like interloper and fake mix were used. That sounds harsher than what biracial people are called.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and see,
Yeah.
I wanna
Absolutely.
bring that up because a lot of us in this group have pretty much stayed silent. I mean, we don't want to ruffle any feathers, you know. We're here to create community, but we have to be honest about what is going on between all of us and how it's affecting different people. And for people to tell other people that they are fake mixed, that they are interlopers or posers, I would argue that that's definitely being discriminatory to other users, and it defeats the purpose of the whole space. Isn't the space about coming together? I don't get it with some people, and I agree with MLS people should date each other. You know, we shouldn't let these few accounts dictate how we interact in this space. But these few accounts actually bring up some good points some of the time, because in regular life, you will have biracial people who will consider you to not be mixed. You could be lighter than them, you could look more mixed than them in a sense, you could be more white passing than them, and they will consider you somehow to be blacker or black or some other type of terminology, not understanding that your identity has a lot to do with your genetics and it isn't just about your environment. Okay. So sometimes, even genetically, you'll have children born. I've seen people who grew up in, like, I used to hang out in the hood. I like the hood some of the time, but I've seen people who, grew up in the hood and they speak, quote unquote, white. They have a lot of mixture, and people say, well, why do they talk like that? They grew up in the hood. Why do they talk like a white person? Well, guess what? They're mixed with a lot of their heritage. So, it's quite possible that this is how the genes express themselves. It expresses themselves through their language. So I just feel like this whole thing where being mixed race is all about your parents and your environment. Some people don't even grow up with these two parents. A lot of it has to do with appearance. And I remember multiracial movement and Golden Goddess, they talked a lot about that on their channel. They talked a lot about how even though some people are light skinned, black, or they're multi-generationally mixed, they experience the same types of discrimination as biracial people. And that's why this space was created in the first place. Okay, all of us came together under that one umbrella to try to combat some of the discrimination. And I think at some point we just kept expanding the umbrella, which was making some people angry because they felt like it should have just been about like the white black mix. But I would argue that just saying white black, that's kind of harsh too. You know, somehow I feel like we needed to embrace different mixtures. That's why I like the MLS community. I feel like we needed to embrace different mixtures, but just have delineation between the different groups so they could individually talk about some of their differences and their struggles, you know? But I don't
never
feel
really
like we should have excluded them all together. Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I personally had never felt, this is one of the things I don't feel comfortable. I don't like that it's by black, white, or black other biracial people who are seen as the face of what it is to be biracial in the United States. I'm not really comfortable with that. I don't like it. I think it's statistically misleading. Yes, it's rooted in a history, and that's fine, but I just don't want biracial itself, the term biracial, to be seen as one group of people, because it's not the case. They're different kinds of people. They're different mixes of people. And I think it's also political and social ramifications, because, you know, if you see biracial people only through the lens of black, white, it's very limiting. And also it's very easy to discriminate. Very easy. I mean, biracial people already have historical and societal hardships that are placed upon them. And we don't need more of that by being relegated, by being isolated and relegated as the only types. But, you know, again, I don't know much about MGM, but to be brutally honest, I've seen people that are clearly MGM who clearly are far more mixed than I am. Far more mixed. I mean, you know, and so the idea that an MGM person is fake mixed, I don't really get or subscribe to. I don't get that. I mean, it's like I look at someone like Valerie Jarrett. She looks far more mixed than I do.
Well, I think some of the, you know, I want to talk about the fake mix terms. So in all fairness to some of the people who are having a problem with the misuse of the term MGM, people who were, you know, 80%, you know, black, let's say, were identifying themselves as MGM. And I think that's when the first, you know, sort of delineation started happening, because people were saying, well, wait a second, these look like fully black people. So in the black community, right, there is a range for what is considered unambiguous black. And although most people who are 75% black look unambiguous black, there can be people who are 75 or 85% even who do look mixed race. So for example, Tyra Banks, I think, is like 83% black, but she looks mixed. Okay, she probably received treatment that a mixed race woman would receive. You know, I know she's got her hair a certain way and like other things to make herself look more mixed, so to speak, but she would have still gotten that treatment anyway. Okay, because like a lot of, you know, African American women, maybe they wear hair relaxer, you know, natural hair. Like I've seen a lot of natural hair in my life. It's beautiful. Like, let's be honest, when you step outside of some of these major cities, a lot of people are still wearing relaxers. They're wearing hair weave. They're wearing wigs. They aren't really wearing, you know, all these fancy braids and natural hairstyles. So somebody like Tyra Banks would definitely be considered mixed race, even though she's 85%, just based on how she looks. Okay. And that is something we also need to point out. So the term MGM, you know, when you have people coming into the group claiming MGM and they're 85%, You know, you're going to have biracial people who are 30% black getting angry and feeling like the category is becoming broadened too much. Diana being messy over here talking about she was paid to research Tyra Banks' plastic surgery. So what were the results of this research?
You know what though, but let me say this though, because I'm pretty sure everybody knows who Tisha Campbell Martin is, right?
Yeah, Tisha Campbell. Yep.
Yeah, Gina, damn Gina. Now you look at her and you stand her next to, give me somebody. Okay, stand her next to Jasmine Guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's no secret that, of course, Jasmine Guy, Whitley Gilbert, Wayne, is biracial. Of course, there's no secret. Just like, you know, again, then you look at Tisha, it's like, okay, well, either she's, you know, LS or she is MGM herself. But regardless of that being, you know, culturally different, but that still doesn't change the fact that they're both considered MLS, though. So, of course, you know, it's like, okay, well, you look at Jasmine Guy, of course, you know, she's going to get the, they're probably going to see her. It's like, okay, well, you know, hey, she's biracial, so she's going to get that, you know. Guess, you know, I don't want to be too derogatory when I say this, but she's going to get that, you know, sort of that white acceptance in comparison to someone like Tisha Campbell Martin. That's just my opinion.
Are you saying because of her phenotype in terms of some of her, some of her features? Is that what you mean?
You know, when you put it that way, I'll say a bit of both. A bit of both.
Yeah, because I guess I can kind of see your point, but I do that specific example, Tisha Campbell Martin. I mean, she's like one of the favorites that colorism activists like to point to and say,
oh,
she's ugly and she's, you know, her career is benefited by her light skin, but she's, you know, there's sort of this idea with light skinned people too, is like wasted color. Like, you know, if you have features that are, you know, quintessentially black, then it's sort of like they like to point that out too. So, you know, she doesn't get missed when it comes to the colorism folks. So
absolutely,
they know how to.
And the thing is, though, what people don't know is that, of course, they could say all that, they could throw in the insults and shade, what have you, at her, but it still doesn't change the fact that, yeah, she has talent. She can sing, she can dance. Matter of fact, she was J-Lo before J-Lo became J-Lo. But, you know, no disrespect. I'm just calling it like I see it.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't ever recall her altering her features to all of a sudden for somebody to say, oh, she's a fake mixed person.
Yeah.
Not that
you talk, well, Jasmine Guy or Tisha Campbell?
I'm talking about Tisha Campbell Martin.
Yeah, Tisha Campbell always kind of retained the same appearance, but I guess she's very, very light. But I feel like when I look at Tisha Campbell, I view her as light-skinned black. And when I look at Jasmine Guy, I view her as mixed. And sometimes like depending on like the hair and the features, you know, I feel like people view other people as light-skinned black versus mixed. But that's another conversation that could be had, because I also think people like to talk about white privilege and light-skin privilege, but they don't talk about black privilege. And sometimes I feel like light-skinned black people have a little bit more black privilege than mixed phenotype looking people have. You know, somebody has a mixed looking phenotype, you know, people will call them a lot of different names, but a light-skinned black person is like, oh, this person is black, they're just light-skinned, you know. So there's those differences too. But I want to read MLS people's comment. If the issue with MGMs is that they are black identified, it's because they were labeled black in the past because of the one drop rule. Right.
And you know, I agree with that. I agree with that. And I said, I think I may have mentioned that before about when you had conversations about the one drop rule. And I said, I felt that the MGMs were victims of the one drop rules first. Then the biracials came, then the biracials probably came afterwards, and then they started feeling the victimization of it as well. I'm not trying to be not trying to divide the two, but really, but yeah, again, when you see again the attacks that MGMs get, and again, it's getting it from three people in comparisons to two.
Right.
That is a lot to handle because three is going to be a bigger number.
Yeah, three groups of people. Because I'm like, white people will be like, well, obviously you're not one of us. Black people are like, you're not really black. And then you have biracial people who are like, you're not really mixed. So it's three types of discrimination as opposed to
in comparisons to two monoracial groups. Absolutely.
That's right.
But I still say that, hey, still ain't gonna change the fact that hey, you still MLS.
Right. Well, MLS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, MLS. So, I mean, hell, I don't see Drake saying, "Oh, Chris Brown ain't really mixed," or I mean, he just a light-skinned black person. I'm like, there's something very wrong with that. I mean, you saw in the video whether he was joking, where he said, "Light-skinned people need to stick together, bro," and Drake's like, "Oh, I got you."
Yeah, we definitely need to stick together. Yeah, I think people inadvertently they do want to come together, but they just have an issue with the way that things are done or have been said. So sometimes they want to the way they do things is very conflict oriented. Okay. So they're not gonna, be nice about it. They're not gonna talk nice about it. They're gonna be like, really outrageous, troll videos, arguments, accusations, arguing, fighting, harassment. Like that's how they're going to try to pursue certain types of changes. And I think that we had never really developed any type of structures in this space between the content creators so that we could alleviate some of this conflict without the structures that we have now. Because I would argue that, I guess it does create a certain amount of traffic between the channels, but at the same time, do we need that type of traffic? I mean, you might have a larger audience without that traffic. If you could just build authentically, you might have a larger audience. But you haven't spoken in a while, Fair-Minded in the Owl Show. Would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I guess I didn't say this earlier. So your point earlier about, needing to stick together, I think is a good one. It just, it's an interesting positionality to be in, because I think on one level, I would be considered a light-skinned Black person. But then on another level, like depending on what the definition of multi-generationally mixed, and I would be that. So yeah, so it can be really tricky. So I know that everyone's trying to sort of assert themselves in their kind of unique slice of identity. But, if we could have some sort of, umbrella unity where we can come together when we could, then I think that would be, to the good.
Yeah, the greater good of this space. Yeah, I definitely believe in the mixed and light skin unity. I think that even though some people are Black and light skinned, I had this argument with someone. Even though some people are Black and light skinned, it's quite possible that they are light skinned because they are long-term multi-generational mixed. It could also be environmental conditions. So let's say there's some of the original groups that were in this country and the skin just lighten naturally over time. So there's nothing wrong with combining these groups together as long as we have an understanding of the different identities and we're not overstepping. But I do feel like some people are more contentious when it comes to accepting and embracing different types of identities. And it's understandable why. I mean, you don't want somebody saying that they're biracial when they're not.
Oh,
Okay.
of course not. Of course not.
Yeah, you don't want people to come in and try to say, "Oh, I'm biracial," and they're not biracial. And I think that happens a lot because they don't have any other idea what kind of identity they could have, you know? So they're so light or they're so mixed looking that they just are kind of thinking, I don't know what else I could identify as. Now, if you live near Texas and, you know, Arkansas and Louisiana, you know, you may feel like, okay, I'll just say I'm Creole. But I mean, some of these coastal cities, you know, I just feel like that identity moniker is just not there for them. So, I mean, I do think that's where some of the division is coming to. And Duke says all light skins are MGM of some sort. I think so. I think a lot of light skins would be some type of MGM. But I have looked at a lot of pictures of people from Africa. You know, I like to study like different types of groups around the world. And I noticed that in Africa, there are a lot of different variations in hair and skin color in some of the groups, even though, you know, most of them of sub-Saharan African descent are definitely black or black in phenotype. There's definitely some variation. There are some light-skinned people, some people who have Asian kind of appearance. You have some people that have blonde hair, blue eyes, pale skin. You have albinos. You have people with red hair, rufous albinism. You have, you know, people who are like a bronze color with hazel eyes and blondish hair. You know how you have a lot of different variations even in Africa. So that if these people were to have come here, you know, and this phenotype exists, this person technically could be like 95% black, and they just happen to look very, very light skinned, you know. But I definitely would say that I would think that they would be a part of this group and they should be embraced by these groups, because the point of these groups in the first place was, you know, being ostracized in a sense from the Black community, either being ostracized or put on pedestals or told we had privilege, or, you know, kind of like the reverse colorism games. There's a lot of reasons why I believe these groups should come together, even if it is, you know, like sort of delineated between the groups. And I do feel like there is an element of people trying to make this kind of like a little Tinder dating scene. And that's a lot of the conflict too. Like a lot of people want to make this about how can they get this light-skinned man or light-skinned woman or biracial man or biracial woman. And they're coming into this space with that kind of thing going on. But, you know, I'm not going to stop them. Okay, if they're looking for love, they can keep looking. That is not my business. But yeah, we're here for different reasons, but I do think we should be able to embrace the different groups and not mistreat people or discriminate against them, because literally we don't know what some people are going through. And I think, to me, that's most strongly how I feel. We don't know, you know, why somebody joins this space. They could really be dealing with a lot, you know, and I wouldn't want anybody to ever come here and feel like they were mistreated upon entry because they're not biracial. I think that has to stop in this space. Or asking whether their mother is white. Is your mother a white woman? Because if not, you don't belong in this group or whatever. Like, you know, we can't continue to uphold these different types of ideologies that are discriminating within our group. You know, we have to be much more embracing. And like, I will shout out some of the different people in this space who have been very embracing of me. So Diana, AMR, Stacy, you know, Jose, Al, just meeting you, fair-minded, Duke, even Multi, Gigi were very embracing of me initially. You know, but like just a lot of people come to this space for a lot of different reasons. And the people who are listening to this, because I know that they're listening, you know, I really want you to think about that. They're not coming here to start a military biracial group. You know, they're coming here, a lot of these people, because they feel like they're ostracized, you know, and they want to be a part of the mixed community. And some people are feeling like they are ostracized by the Black community because of their complexion. So even though, yes, we do have the Tinder crowd, we also have people coming here because they feel ostracized. But I want to say good night to Diana. I know Irby left earlier. Those of you who are still watching, I appreciate it. That's going to be my last statement. If anybody else would like to add anything.
Okay. Hello.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your mic is a little choppy.
Okay. I apologize. It's just that I've been having trouble with the Wi-Fi, so I have to like try to switch to a hotspot to try to see if I can rectify the problem. I'm sorry. I would anticipate it further, but I think we as Latinos need to learn a great deal regarding the MGMs because many of us have the wrong conceptions of who they are. So it's very important to have these discussions.
Yeah, and I would say like so with Latinos too, like you have people who are Puerto Rican and Dominican, and they've been mixed over generations. That's kind of similar to MGM, but I feel like because they already have a nationality, it kind of a mixed race nationality, like you really don't need that term. However, in the United States, the only terminology we have for people who are MGM is Black or African American. Okay, there is no mulatto category anymore for people who are MGM to identify with, along with biracial people. Okay, that category is gone. We would like it back, but realistically, we don't know how. We don't know how that's going to work. We will be fighting very, very hard to get that type of identity going. And we also have many, many, many people coming from other countries at this point. So that also changes the dynamics greatly. But would you like to add anything else, Al, AMR, fair-minded?
And one of the things. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm gonna be really quick, and then I want to hear what you have to say. So I just wanted to kind of in the vein of what you were saying about connecting with other people and thanking people for their support. I do want to make sure that I said to you, Future, thank you for letting me come up and speak. I know I'm kind of a newer channel, have very few videos, so and I know that some of the connections and things have been you might be kind of gun shy about engaging with somebody. So I really do appreciate the time and being able to come up and share. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, let's show Fair-Minded a little love. And you said you have a channel? Or
I do. I have I guess I have 3 videos up now. So I'm not so great with the technology, so I'm kind of learning, but
okay.
so far I just have the 3 videos. So
okay, well, we'll come out and show you some support, Fair-Minded. And I appreciate you coming up on the panel. A lot of us also know Jose Negron and the Owl Show and AMR, the Lone and Silent Gamer have channels. So please also subscribe to those channels. Those of you who are still here, could you please make sure to like this stream? I didn't ask people to like on their way in or out, but please just hit the like on your way in or out. And would you like to add anything else? I'll show AMR, Jose.
Well, I was going to say that.
Okay, we'll do Jose first. Jose, what would you like to add?
As I stated before, first of all, thank you for allowing me on your platform. And again, I apologize for all the technical difficulties but I think this is very important because we clarify and define, what are the issues that MGMs do have, and it's through these discussions it will eliminate a lot of, and it can clarify, and it can help us be regarding MGMs. So that being said, thank you very much for allowing me.
Okay, thank you. And you cut off right as you were saying that. AMR?
Oh yes, again, what I also wanted to say is that, in regarding the issues and all that that's taking place in regarding this space, along with not just content creators, but just people in general, whether they, I mean, especially even in the biracial community in regards to, who they go after regarding not only trying to play the identity politics game, they're also playing the identity politics game with one another, not just, because they have a white mother, but in a way they also have a white father. So those two also go into play. And because those issues are going on, it's like, I don't know if that resonates, it also pretty much over here, because they too are facing backlash based off of the one parent being different and regarding the gender.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot of interesting. I think the biracial community has a lot of interesting discussions and issues. I mean, I've always said that, but I also think that there's a lot of separation between those issues when you're talking about
Oh, yeah.
the different communities, and even MGM and Creole, for example.
Absolutely.
Creole people have a very unique identity that, like, the average kind of like long-term, mulatto, white, black, biracial, multiple generations, that's going to be a very different type of identity. So most definitely, I definitely think that a lot of these issues are different. But I just wanted to read this comment. A lot of these problems I'm seeing in this space is because of politics. And what makes it worse is some of politics is based on identity. So I'm hoping you're not talking about Trump versus Biden, because like, I hope people aren't getting into the whole Trump versus the Democrats kind of ideologies. But I do see that some people are uber conservative in this space, and that has a big impact on how they look at identity. But I want to ask Al, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because that's one of the things that I found when I came into the mixed race spaces was it seems to be there are a number of people who are of a conservative ideology and a right-wing ideology. And that's kind of interesting considering the history of mixed race people and biracial people in this country, and mixed race people in general, not just biracial people, but mixed race people in general. And it's odd because it's a contradictory. Those politics, as far as I'm concerned, don't really mix with a mixed race, reality. I mean, to be honest, I mean, people can believe in whatever they want politically, but I for one understand that right wingers and conservatives don't view people like me, biracials, and probably don't view even MGMs positively at all, and never
Right.
will. I mean, it's just the history of this country. So for me, it's not my politics. And as a biracial person, just as a mixed race person in general, and specifically biracial, yeah, it's like too toxic and radioactive for me. I'm like, I'm not gonna be. The problem with that ideology, as far as I'm concerned, is that's the ideology of racist and white supremacists and ultimately anti-biracial people. So on that side of the equation, that's the problem. So
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know how the people accommodate themselves to the politics of that, but that's their issue. It's not mine. So, well, thanks for having me on.
All right. And again, I appreciate everybody for coming out tonight. I just want to, give a shout out to everybody on the panel: AMR, the Al Show, Jose, Fair Minded. I want to thank you all for coming up. Have a good evening. I want to say goodbye to everybody in the chat: Duke, Stacy, Nelson, MLS People, Diana. Irby was here, and all the other great people who showed up today. Thank you. I appreciate it, and have a great evening, everyone. Please hit the like on your way out. Honey Rose, you came and it's a little bit late, so I'm leaving, but I hope you can catch the playback. And it was good to see everyone this evening. Okay, good night.
Same here. I appreciate you having
Good night.
appreciate you
Thank
having
you.
me on.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Yes,
And
good
like I
night,
said,
be
thank you
safe.
for having me on, and hopefully we can have it do this again.
Yes, hope to do this again. Good night, everyone.
Yes, hopefully I will be in the back of the website. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, bye Al. I mean, bye Jose. Bye Al. Bye AMR.
Later.
Okay, later. Yeah, I gotta help Jose with the mic. I think the mic was messed up this evening. So I'm just thinking out loud and just want to say goodbye to all the people that came through. It's got a lot of comments, a lot more live streams to come through. But definitely thank you all for showing up. And for those of you who are watching the playback, I want to ask you the question that this live stream posed. Why do you think it is controversial to play mixed, especially for multi-generationally mixed Americans? Okay, what's controversial about it? And what can we do to change that so people can embrace their identity? So thank you, everyone.